What is the primary rationale for data protection laws in Europe? A. Promoting digital innovation. B. Enhancing national security. C. Protecting individuals' privacy rights. D. Facilitating international trade. Correct answer: C. Protecting individuals' privacy rights. Which institution is responsible for the interpretation of EU law, including data protection laws? A. European Parliament. B. European Commission. C. Court of Justice of the European Union. D. European Council. Correct answer: C. Court of Justice of the European Union. The GDPR is directly applicable in which of the following areas? A. Only within the EU member states. B. Only within the EEA countries. C. Globally, to all companies processing EU citizens' data. D. Only in countries that have adopted GDPR-like laws. Correct answer: C. Globally, to all companies processing EU citizens' data. What was the main objective of the EU Data Protection Directive, 95/46, EC? A. To regulate the use of artificial intelligence. B. To harmonize data protection laws across the EU. C. To establish the European Data Protection Board. D. To oversee data breaches and cybersecurity threats. Correct answer: B. To harmonize data protection laws across the EU. The e-Privacy Directive primarily focuses on A. The protection of personal data in electronic commerce. B. The regulation of electronic communications privacy. C. The harmonization of copyright laws across the EU. D. The establishment of data protection standards for I. Correct answer: B. The regulation of electronic communications privacy. What does the Treaty of Lisbon relate to in the context of data protection? A. It established the GDPR. B. It reformed EU institutional structure, impacting data protection. C. It introduced the e-Privacy Directive. D. It exclusively dealt with electronic commerce. Correct answer: B. It reformed EU institutional structure, impacting data protection. Which of the following best describes the role of the European Data Protection Board? A. Enforcing data protection laws in non-EU countries. B. Providing guidance on data protection matters within the EU. C. Drafting new data protection laws for EU member states. D. Monitoring compliance with the NIS directive. Correct answer: B. Providing guidance on data protection matters within the EU. The NIS directive focuses on A. Network and information system security. B. Personal data processing activities. C. Privacy and electronic communications. D. Data retention practices in e-commerce. Correct answer: A. Network and information system security. How does Brexit impact the application of GDPR in the UK? A. GDPR is no longer applicable in the UK. B. UK has its own version of GDPR that closely mirrors the use. GDPR applies in the UK without any changes. D. UK businesses can ignore GDPR when dealing with EU customers. Correct answer: B. UK has its own version of GDPR that closely mirrors the EU's. Convention 108 is significant because it was the first A. EU directive focusing on electronic commerce. B. International Treaty on Data Protection. C. Legislation introducing the concept of GDPR. D. EU regulation on artificial intelligence. Correct answer: B. International Treaty on Data Protection. Which principle of GDPR requires that personal data be kept in a form which permits identification of data subjects for no longer than is necessary for the purposes for which the personal data are processed? A. Lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. B. Data minimization. C. Storage limitation. D. Integrity and confidentiality. Correct answer: C. Storage limitation. Under GDPR, the right to be forgotten is also known as A. Right to erasure. B. Right to data portability. C. Right to access. D. Right to rectification. Correct answer: A. Right to erasure. Which of the following is not a role defined under GDPR? A. Data controller. B. Data processor. C. Data protector. D. Data subject. Correct answer: C. Data protector. The Data Protection Impact Assessment, DPIA, is mandatory under GDPR in cases of A. Large-scale processing of genetic data. B. Occasional processing of personal data for marketing. C. Processing of data necessary for the performance of a contract. D. Transferring data within the same organization. Correct answer: A. Large-scale processing of genetic data. Under the GDPR, which authority is primarily responsible for overseeing the application of data protection laws in a specific EU member state? A. European Data Protection Supervisor. B. National Data Protection Authority. C. European Commission. D. Court of Justice of the European Union. Correct answer: B. National Data Protection Authority. What does the principle of data minimization under GDPR imply? A. Data should be processed in a manner that ensures security. B. Only the necessary data for the specific purpose should be collected. C. Data should be stored for limited time periods. D. Data should be processed transparently. Correct answer: B. Only the necessary data for the specific purpose should be collected. The EU-US Privacy Shield was invalidated by the Court of Justice of the European Union in which year? A. 2016. B. 2018. C. 2020. D. 2022. Correct answer: C. 2020. What is the primary purpose of the Data Governance Act proposed by the European Commission? A. To regulate artificial intelligence. B. To enhance cybersecurity across the EU. C. To facilitate data sharing among EU countries. D. To replace the GDPR. Correct answer: C. To facilitate data sharing among EU countries. Which of the following is not a lawful basis for processing personal data under the GDPR? A. Consent of the data subject. B. Legitimate interest pursued by the data controller. C. The data subject's social media preferences. D. Compliance with a legal obligation. Correct answer: C. The data subject's social media preferences. In the context of GDPR, what does pseudonymization refer to? A. The complete anonymization of personal data. B. The deletion of personal data upon request. C. The process of transforming personal data in such a way that it cannot be attributed to a specific data subject without the use of additional information. D. The encryption of personal data. Correct answer: C. The process of transforming personal data in such a way that it cannot be attributed to a specific data subject without the use of additional information. Which GDPR article outlines the conditions for consent? A. Article 6b, Article 7c, Article 9d, Article 22. Correct answer: B. Article 7. The lead supervisory authority is a concept in GDPR that applies to A. Data processing that affects data subjects in more than one EU member state. B. Any data breach, regardless of its geographical impact. C. The appointment of a data protection officer. D. The processing of data by public authorities exclusively. Correct answer: A. Data processing that affects data subjects in more than one EU member state. Which of the following scenarios would most likely require the appointment of a data protection officer, DPO, under GDPR? A. A small bakery that processes employee data for payroll. B. A university conducting research involving large-scale processing of sensitive data. C. A bookstore using a third-party service for email marketing. D. A local community group maintaining a membership contact list. Correct answer: B. A university conducting research involving large-scale processing of sensitive data. Under GDPR, the right to data portability allows individuals to A. Request deletion of personal data. B. Receive personal data concerning them in a structured, commonly used and machine-readable format. C. Object to the processing of their personal data. D. Be informed about data breaches within 72 hours. Correct answer: B. Receive personal data concerning them in a structured, commonly used and machine-readable format. Cross-border data transfers under GDPR are permitted if a. The data subject has traveled outside the EU. B. The European Commission has decided that the third country ensures an adequate level of protection. C. The data controller uses standard contractual clauses without any additional safeguards. D. The data is encrypted. What does personal data refer to under GDPR? A. Any information related to an identified or identifiable natural person. B. Data collected by government agencies only. C. Information that is publicly available. D. Data processed by individuals in a personal capacity. Correct answer: A. Any information related to an identified or identifiable natural person. Which of the following is considered sensitive personal data under GDPR? A. Email addresses. B. Names and surnames. C. Racial or ethnic origin. D. Company registration numbers. Correct answer: C. Racial or ethnic origin. What is the primary difference between pseudonymous and anonymous data? A. Pseudonymous data can still be attributed to a specific individual with additional information. B. Anonymous data is not protected under GDPR. C. Pseudonymous data is not considered personal data under GDPR. D. Anonymous data can easily be linked back to an individual. Correct answer: A. Pseudonymous data can still be attributed to a specific individual with additional information. What role does a controller play in data processing activities? A. Determines the purposes and means of the processing of personal data. B. Carries out the actual processing of data on behalf of the controller. C. Monitors compliance with the GDPR. D. Acts as an intermediary between the data subject and the processor. Correct answer: A. Determines the purposes and means of the processing of personal data. Which of the following entities is directly responsible for processing personal data on behalf of the controller? A. Data Protection Officer. B. Supervisor Authority. C. Processor. D. Data Subject. Correct answer: C. Processor. Under GDPR, what is the territorial scope for companies established outside the EU? A. GDPR does not apply to companies outside the EU. B. Applies only if the company has an EU citizen as a customer. C. Applies if the company offers goods or services to, or monitors the behavior of, EU data subjects. D. Applies only if the company processes data within EU territory. Correct answer: C. Applies if the company offers goods or services to, or monitors the behavior of, EU data subjects. What principle requires that personal data should be kept no longer than necessary for the purposes for which it is processed? A. Accuracy. B. Storage limitation. C. Integrity and confidentiality. D. Proportionality. Correct answer: B. Storage limitation. Which lawful basis for processing allows for processing personal data if it's necessary for the performance of a contract? A. Consent. B. Contractual necessity. C. Legal obligation. D. Legitimate interests. Correct answer: B. Contractual necessity. What obligation does the GDPR impose regarding the provision of information to data subjects? A. Only requires notification in case of a data breach. B. Mandates that information must be provided in a concise, transparent, intelligible, and easily accessible form. C. Allows for information to be provided only upon request. D. Requires all information to be provided in written form. Correct answer: B. Mandates that information must be provided in a concise, transparent, intelligible, and easily accessible form. Which right allows a data subject to obtain from the controller confirmation as to whether or not personal data concerning him is being processed? A. Right to erasure. B. Right to restrict processing. C. Right to access. D. Right to data portability. Correct answer: C. Right to access. What constitutes a personal data breach under GDPR? A. Any disagreement between a data subject and a controller. B. A breach of security leading to the accidental or unlawful destruction, loss, alteration, unauthorized disclosure of, or access to, personal data transmitted, stored or otherwise processed. C. A formal complaint made by a data subject to a supervisory authority. D. Any processing of personal data without consent. Correct answer: B. A breach of security leading to the accidental or unlawful destruction, loss, alteration, unauthorized disclosure of, or access to, personal data transmitted, stored or otherwise processed. What is required for a controller to demonstrate compliance with GDPR's accountability principle? A. Only need to appoint a data protection officer. B. Must be able to prove that a data protection impact assessment has been conducted for all processing activities. C. Must maintain records of processing activities and implement data protection by design and by default. D. Only required to have a privacy policy in place. Correct answer: C. Must maintain records of processing activities and implement data protection by design and by default. Which mechanism is specifically designed to facilitate the lawful transfer of personal data outside the EU? A. Data localization. B. Data minimization. C. Standard contractual clauses. D. Consent of the data subject. Correct answer: C. Standard contractual clauses. What is the role of the European Data Protection Board, EDPB? A. Enforces GDPR compliance for specific companies. B. Provides a platform for data subjects to file complaints. C. Contributes to the consistent application of GDPR across data under GDPR. A. Email addresses. B. Names. C. Racial or ethnic origin. D. Company names. Correct answer: C. Racial or ethnic origin. What distinguishes pseudonymous data from anonymous data? A. Pseudonymous data cannot be attributed to a specific data subject without additional information. B. Anonymous data can be easily linked to a specific individual. C. Pseudonymous data is fully anonymous. D. Anonymous data is a form of sensitive personal data. Correct answer: A. Pseudonymous data cannot be attributed to a specific data subject without additional information. What role does a controller play in data processing under GDPR? A. Executes the processing of personal data on behalf of the controller. B. Determines the purposes and means of processing personal data. C. Is responsible for the technical aspects of data processing. D. Acts as the data protection officer for a processing operation. Correct answer. B. Determines the purposes and means of processing personal data. Under GDPR, what criteria applies to a lawful basis for processing personal data? A. Public interest only. B. Consent, contractual necessity, legal obligation, vital interests, public interest, and legitimate interest. C. The data subject's physical location. D. The size of the processing organization. Correct answer. B. Consent, contractual necessity, legal obligation, vital interests, public interest, and legitimate interests. What principle requires data controllers to implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure and to be able to demonstrate that processing is performed in accordance with the GDPR? A. Data minimization. B. Accountability. C. Transparency. D. Storage limitation. Correct answer. B. Accountability. Which of the following is a data subject's right under GDPR? A. The right to internet access. B. The right to be informed. C. The right to data portability. D. The right to unlimited data storage. Correct answer. C. The right to data portability. What is required for transferring personal data to a third country or an international organization under GDPR? A. The data subject's explicit consent for each transfer. B. Approval from each EU member state. C. Ensuring an adequate level of protection or implementing appropriate safeguards. D. Notification to the local data protection authority only. Correct answer. C. Ensuring an adequate level of protection or implementing appropriate safeguards. What does the GDPR territorial scope extend to? A. Only organizations established within the EU. B. Organizations established within the EU and those targeting or monitoring individuals in the EU. C. Any global organization, regardless of its interactions with EU residents. D. Only organizations that process personal data of EU citizens. Correct answer. B. Organizations established within the EU and those targeting or monitoring individuals in the EU. What is the purpose of a Data Protection Impact Assessment, DPIA, under GDPR? A. To assess the financial impact of data processing activities. B. To ensure compliance with international data transfer requirements. C. To identify and mitigate risks related to personal data processing activities. D. To document the types of personal data an organization collects. Correct answer. C. To identify and mitigate risks related to personal data processing activities. How does GDPR define processing in the context of personal data? A. Only the collection and storage of personal data. B. Any operation performed on personal data, whether or not by automated means. C. The dissemination of personal data to third parties. D. Processing strictly involves data destruction processes. Correct answer. B. Any operation performed on personal data, whether or not by automated means. What constitutes a special category of personal data under GDPR? A. Employee records within a company. B. Data related to criminal convictions and offenses. C. Biometric data for the purpose of uniquely identifying a natural person. D. Internet browsing history. Correct answer. C. Biometric data for the purpose of uniquely identifying a natural person. Under GDPR, what distinguishes a processor from a controller? A. A processor is the main entity responsible for data privacy, while the controller is secondary. B. The processor processes personal data on behalf of the controller. C. The controller is an EU-specific role, whereas the processor can be based anywhere. D. Processors determine the purpose of data processing. Controllers execute the processing. Correct answer. B. The processor processes personal data on behalf of the controller. Which of the following best describes the principle of data minimization under GDPR? A. Collecting as much personal data as possible for future USE. B. Ensuring personal data collected is adequate, relevant, and limited to what is necessary. C. Limiting the processing of personal data to storage only. D. Reducing the amount of sensitive personal data collected. Correct answer. B. Ensuring personal data collected is adequate, relevant, and limited to what is necessary. What is the role of the European Data Protection Board under GDPR? A. To process personal data complaints from EU citizens. B. To oversee the application of GDPR, ensuring consistent application across the EU. C. To enact new data protection laws in the EU. D. To serve as the data protection authority for non-EU countries. Correct answer. B. To oversee the application of GDPR, ensuring consistent application across the EU. What does the right to be forgotten under GDPR entail? A. The right to have personal data erased under certain conditions. B. The right to prevent data from being processed in the future. C. The right to have inaccurate personal data corrected. D. The right to stop the distribution of personal data on the Internet. Correct answer: A. The right to have personal data erased under certain conditions. How does GDPR address automated decision-making and profiling? A. It prohibits all forms of automated decision-making and profiling. B. It allows unrestricted automated decision-making and profiling. C. It provides individuals with rights to obtain human intervention, express their point of view, and contest the decision. D. It mandates the use of automated decision-making for efficiency. Correct answer: C. It provides individuals with rights to obtain human intervention, express their point of view, and contest the decision. What are the criteria for appointing a data protection officer, DPO, under GDPR? A. Any organization can appoint a DPO if they process personal data. B. Appointment is mandatory for public authorities and bodies, organizations that perform large-scale systematic monitoring, or large-scale processing of special categories of data. C. Only organizations with more than 250 employees are required to appoint a DPO. D. DPO appointment is voluntary and not mandated by GDPR. Correct answer: B. Appointment is mandatory for public authorities and bodies, organizations that perform large-scale systematic monitoring, or large-scale processing of special categories of data. In what circumstances can personal data be transferred outside the EU according to GDPR? A. Only with the explicit consent of each data subject. B. When the European Commission has decided that the third country ensures an adequate level of protection. C. Transfers can occur at any time without any specific conditions. D. Only between EU member states. Correct answer: B. When the European Commission has decided that the third country ensures an adequate level of protection. What does the principle of integrity and confidentiality under GDPR imply for personal data? A. Data should be made publicly available to ensure transparency. B. Data should be processed in a manner that ensures its security, including protection against unauthorized or unlawful processing and against accidental loss, destruction or damage. C. Data can be shared without restrictions to maintain data flow. D. Data must be encrypted regardless of its nature. Correct answer: B. Data should be processed in a manner that ensures its security, including protection against unauthorized or unlawful processing and against accidental loss, destruction or damage. What is the legal basis for processing employee data under EU data protection law? A. Consent of the data subject. B. Legitimate interest of the employer. C. Performance of a contract. D. All of the above. Correct answer: D. All of the above. What must be considered when storing personnel records according to European data protection law? A. The size of the storage facility. B. The encryption method used. C. The duration and purpose of storage. D. The color of the storage units. Correct answer: C. The duration and purpose of storage. What is a key consideration in workplace monitoring and data loss prevention? A. Employee comfort. B. Balance between privacy and security. C. The brand of monitoring software. D. The cost of the monitoring systems. Correct answer: B. Balance between privacy and security. What role do EU Works Councils play in relation to data protection? A. Negotiating commercial contracts. B. Providing IT support. C. Representing employee interests in consultations on privacy matters. D. Conducting external audits. Correct answer: C. Representing employee interests in consultations on privacy matters. Which of the following is an essential component of whistleblowing systems under EU data protection law? A. Anonymity of whistleblowers. B. The whistleblower's department. C. The financial impact of the report. D. The whistleblower's motivation. Correct answer: A. Anonymity of whistleblowers. What is a consideration for bring your own device (BYOD) programs under EU data protection law? A. Device color. B. Personal use restrictions. C. The brand of the device, employee's device preference. Correct answer: B. Personal use restrictions. What is a concern for surveillance by public authorities under European data protection law? A. Enhancing surveillance techniques. B. Public popularity of surveillance measures. C. Compliance with privacy rights. D. Cost of surveillance technologies. Correct answer: C. Compliance with privacy rights. How does the interception of communications relate to data protection? A. It is always prohibited. B. It is allowed with the consent of all parties. C. It is a preferred method of data collection. D. It requires a judicial order. Correct answer. B. It is allowed with the consent of all parties. What guideline relates to the processing of personal data through video devices? A. Guidelines 2/2018. B. Guidelines 3/2019. C. Guidelines 4/2020. D. Guidelines 1/2017. Correct answer. B. Guidelines 3/2019. What is a significant consideration when using geolocation data under EU data protection law? A. The weather conditions when collecting data. B. The precision of the geolocation data. C. The popularity of the location. D. The color of the geolocation marker. Correct answer. B. The precision of the geolocation data. What is a key data protection concern with biometrics and facial recognition? A. The attractiveness of the subjects. B. The speed of processing. C. The uniqueness and sensitivity of the data. D. The brand of the camera used. Correct answer. C. The uniqueness and sensitivity of the data. What guideline addresses the targeting of social media users? A. Guidelines 8/2020. B. Guidelines 5/2019. C. Guidelines 7/2018. D. Guidelines 2/2017. Correct answer. A. Guidelines 8/2020. What is a primary consideration for cloud computing under EU data protection law? A. The color scheme of the user interface. B. Data sovereignty and location of data storage. C. The speed of the internet connection. D. The operating system used. Correct answer. B. Data sovereignty and location of data storage. Which of the following is a significant concern with web cookies under EU data protection law? A. The flavor of the cookies. B. User consent and transparency. C. The expiration date of the cookies. D. The number of cookies used. Correct answer. B. User consent and transparency. What ethical issue is associated with artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning? A. The programming language USED. B. Bias and fairness. C. The color of the AI logo. D. The name of the AI system. Correct answer. B. Bias and fairness. What principle underlies the requirement for data minimization in EU data protection law? A. Collect as much data as possible. B. Store data indefinitely. C. Limit personal data collection to what is directly relevant and necessary. D. Encourage data sharing among businesses. Correct answer. C. Limit personal data collection to what is directly relevant and necessary. How does the concept of data portability benefit data subjects under GDPR? A. It allows data subjects to request more data from data controllers. B. It enables data subjects to transfer their personal data from one service provider to another. C. It permits data subjects to charge fees for their data. D. It encourages data subjects to store their data locally. Correct answer. B. It enables data subjects to transfer their personal data from one service provider to another. What constitutes a data breach under European data protection law? A. Any disagreement between data controllers and data processes. B. A temporary website downtime. C. Unauthorized access to or disclosure of personal data. D. Regular data maintenance activities. Correct answer. C. Unauthorized access to or disclosure of personal data. Which of the following scenarios requires a data protection impact assessment, DPIA, according to GDPR? A. Updating the company's employee handbook. B. Launching a new marketing campaign. Introducing a new system for processing sensitive personal data on a large-scaled, annual inventory of company assets. Correct answer. C. Introducing a new system for processing sensitive personal data on a large scale. Under GDPR, what rights does the right to erasure, right to be forgotten, not cover? A. Erasure of data that is no longer necessary in relation to the purposes for which they were collected. B. Erasure of data that the data subject has withdrawn consent for and there is no other legal ground for processing. C. Erasure of data when the data subject objects to the processing and there are overriding legitimate grounds for the processing. D. Erasure of data for compliance with a legal obligation in union or member state law. Correct answer. C. Erasure of data when the data subject objects to the processing and there are overriding legitimate grounds for the processing. What role does the Data Protection Officer, DPO, not play under GDPR? A. Providing advice on data protection impact assessments, DPIAs. B. Acting as a contact point for the supervisory authority. C. Making final decisions on data processing activities. D. Monitoring compliance with the GDPR. Correct answer. C. Making final decisions on data processing activities. What is the primary purpose of the European Data Protection Board, EDPB? A. To oversee the digital economy in the EU. B. To enforce cybersecurity measures across member states. C. To ensure consistent application of GDPR across the EU. D. To develop software for data protection compliance. Correct answer: C. To ensure consistent application of GDPR across the EU. Under GDPR, in what scenario is processing special categories of personal data permitted? A. When the data subject has made the data publicly available. B. For any marketing purpose without explicit consent. C. When processing is necessary for the provision of health services and the data subject is physically or legally incapable of giving consent. D. For unlimited profiling activities. Correct answer: C. When processing is necessary for the provision of health services and the data subject is physically or legally incapable of giving consent. How does GDPR define a child for the purposes of consent in relation to information society services? A. Anyone under the age of 16. B. Anyone under the age of 18. C. Anyone under the age of 21. D. Anyone under the age of 13. Correct answer: A. Anyone under the age of 16. What constitutes legitimate interest under GDPR as a legal basis for processing personal data? A. The interests of the data subject always override the interests of the data controller. B. Processing necessary for the purposes of the legitimate interests pursued by the data controller or a third party, except where such interests are overridden by the interests or fundamental rights and freedoms of the data subject. C. Any commercial interest. D. The personal preference of the data controller. Correct answer: B. Processing necessary for the purposes of the legitimate interests pursued by the data controller or a third party, except where such interests are overridden by the interests or fundamental rights and freedoms of the data subject. What is required for data processing to be considered fair under GDPR? A. Ensuring that data processing benefits the data controller exclusively. B. Processing data in a way that is transparent and respects the rights of the data subject. C. Prioritizing the interests of the public over the privacy of the data subject. D. Sharing personal data with as many third parties as possible without consent. Correct answer: B. Processing data in a way that is transparent and respects the rights of the data subject. Under GDPR, when is it mandatory to appoint a data protection officer, DPO? A. For all businesses operating within the EU. B. Only for public authorities, organizations that engage in large-scale systematic monitoring, or organizations that process sensitive personal data on a large scale. C. Solely for small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs. D. For companies that process personal data of EU citizens outside the EU. Correct answer: B. Only for public authorities, organizations that engage in large-scale systematic monitoring, or organizations that process sensitive personal data on a large scale. What triggers the need for a Data Protection Impact Assessment, DPIA, according to GDPR? A. Routine operational activities within a company. B. High-risk processing activities, such as large-scale processing of sensitive data or systematic monitoring of public areas. C. Small-scale processing of non-sensitive data. D. The annual review of a company's privacy policy. Correct answer: B. High-risk processing activities, such as large-scale processing of sensitive data or systematic monitoring of public areas. In the context of GDPR, what is the significance of the right to data portability? A. It allows data subjects to obtain and reuse their personal data across different services. B. It grants data subjects the right to have their data deleted upon request. C. It permits data controllers to transfer personal data without consent. D. It ensures unlimited storage of personal data by data controllers. Correct answer: A. It allows data subjects to obtain and reuse their personal data across different services. How does GDPR treat the transfer of personal data to countries outside the EU? A. Transfers are unrestricted under all circumstances. B. Transfers are allowed only if the receiving country ensures an adequate level of data protection or if specific safeguards are in place. C. Transfers are prohibited to countries outside the EU. D. Transfers require payment of a transfer fee to the EU. Correct answer: B. Transfers are allowed only if the receiving country ensures an adequate level of data protection or if specific safeguards are in place. What is the threshold for notifying the relevant supervisory authority of a data breach under GDPR? A. Any data breach, regardless of its severity. B. Only breaches that result in a financial loss. C. Breaches that are likely to result in a risk to the rights and freedoms of natural persons. D. Breaches that have been publicly disclosed by the media. Correct answer: C. breaches that are likely to result in a risk to the rights and freedoms of natural persons. Under what condition can processing of genetic data, biometric data, or data concerning health be considered lawful under GDPR? A. When it is necessary for reasons of substantial public interest, on the basis of union or member state law. B. Whenever a data controller deems it necessary for research purposes. C. If the data subject has visited a healthcare facility, regardless of consent. D. For any insurance purposes without explicit consent. Correct answer: A. When it is necessary for reasons of substantial public interest, on the basis of union or member state law. What does the principle of accountability under GDPR entail for data controllers? A. They must be able to demonstrate compliance with all aspects of GDPR. B. They are only accountable for data breaches and nothing else. C. They need to document their processing activities once every 5 years. D. They should provide annual training on GDPR to employees. Correct answer: A. They must be able to demonstrate compliance with all aspects of GDPR. How does GDPR address automated decision-making, including profiling? A. It categorically prohibits all forms of automated decision-making and profiling. B. It allows unrestricted automated decision-making and profiling. C. It provides individuals with the right not to be subject to a decision based solely on automated processing, including profiling, which produces legal effects concerning them or similarly significantly affects the MD. It mandates that automated decision-making can only be conducted by public authorities. Correct answer: C. It provides individuals with the right not to be subject to a decision based solely on automated processing, including profiling, which produces legal effects concerning them or similarly significantly affects them.